Okay, good morning. Today we're going to start off Beis, right? 22? 22a, of Beis and Aleph by the Mishnah. Right? Thank Hashem that you're able to learn Torah every day. The course of our learning, you have the Beis and Aleph immediately. Oh, 1 second. Sorry. Just, okay. Sorry. I'm juggling a few things here. Okay, so the Mishnah starts like this. Masarev kainta. If a kaimitz, the kaimitz is the scoop that was taken out from a carbon mincha by the kayan has to do this, and it's not a mincha of a kayan, it's a mincha of Yisrael, because a mincha of a kayan wouldn't have just the kmitza being brought, he would have to burn everything. So it's a regular mincha, but it got mixed up. And the kaimitz of one mincha got mixed up, the kaimitz chaverta with the kaimitz of another one. So that's not a problem. That's going to be kosher. And the minchas kayanim, let's say it gets mixed up with the mincha of kayanim. Now the mincha of kayan, we said, is going to be entirely burnt. Didn't get mixed up with the kaimitz got mixed up with the whole thing. Or minchas kayan mashiach, or the chavite kayan gadol. This was the mincha that the kayan gadol brought every day. Half of it was brought in the morning, and half of it was brought in the afternoon. Or b'minchas nesachim. Or it got mixed up with a mincha with the flour and oil and wine that came along with the sacrifice. All of these are kshera, because all of them are burnt on the altar, just like the kaimitz. So what's the difference? You just put it on the altar and it's all good.
One of them is only half. Oh, it was before they split.
What do you mean one of them is only half? It's all burnt, right?
Yeah, but it's half in the morning, half in the...
Yeah, but it's all burnt. Right? So, Rabbi Yehuda says, the minchas kain Mashiach, b'minchas nesachem, if the kaimitz got mixed up with the chavite kain gadol, which is entirely burnt, or with the minchas nesachem, that's psula. That's not going to be valid. Shazu bli lasa ava, and v'zu bli lasa raka. V'him b'lasum mizu. Rabbi Yehuda says there's a problem here because they're different constitutions. The proportions are different. In a regular mincha, there's one lug per isarin. One lug per one isarin, which is considered a blilasa ava. It's a thick mixture. Not a lot of oil per flour. However, the minchas kayan mashiach and the minchas nesachim have 3 lug per one isarin. So the oil is much larger, much more. There's 2 times the oil, 3 times the oil. So 3 times the oil, right? So it's a much looser mixture. It's a looser mixture. That's the case. So then, no, it doesn't mean mixed up as confused. It got mixed in.
Oh.
Yeah. So he says that's going to be possible because what's the psul? Psul is that you can't add more oil than what you're supposed to have. So when you're going to be burning it, it's like it absorbed some of the oil from the one from the other one. So there's too much oil in this one. Then it means that there's too little oil in the other one. Okay. Tanan Hasav. We learned in the Mishnah. This is in the Darim. Where's the Mishnah? Where is it? In Zvachim? Okay. Yeah. None has Zvachim. Okay. So we learned in a Mishnah that says Dam shenesarav b'mayim. If blood of a carbon that's supposed to be sprinkled gets mixed up with water, if it's still the water still looks like blood, then it's kosher. Then you can sprinkle it. The saraf b'yayin, it gets mixed up with wine, then royan isek kilo mayim. What are you supposed to do now? You can't tell if it's how much it is, if it would look. So you have to imagine that if that wine would be water, would it still look like blood? So if that's the case, then it would be kosher. Let's say it got mixed in with literally other blood of a chulin animal, or blood of a chaya, which is definitely chulin, because we don't bring wild animals as sacrifices. A deer or something, a buffalo. Then you also imagine that it's water, and it's going to be kosher, because if in the water it would still look like blood, then this would be a kosher to sprinkle. Rabbi Yehuda argues on this. He says, "Ein dam mevatel dam." He says that it's always going to be kosher. It never gets nullified, because this is Rabbi Yehuda Shita, the min b'minay lebatel. Two items of the same type, the same species, don't nullify one another. They actually strengthen one another. So it's always like the original blood is still there. So if it would be mixed in with other blood, whatever type of blood it is, it would never be batel, and it would always be kosher to sprinkle. Rabbi Yechanan comes along and explains the Mishnah. He says, both Rabbi Yehuda and the Chachamim learn it from the same pasuk. It says that you take from the blood of the par, and you takes from the blood of the goat. Now, everyone knows that the bull has much more blood than the goat. It's a much larger animal. The goat is this little tiny poodle, as opposed to this cow, which is like closer to an elephant. So everyone knows that there's much more blood of the cow than in the goat. So Rabbanan Savri, the Rabbanan hold, what we're seeing here is that even though the blood of the goat should be nullified, and we shouldn't even be mentioning it, because it's so much more blood of the bull, but nevertheless the Torah still mentions it, which means that it's still considered there, since it's still considered significant. Rabbanan Savri, Mikan La'olen Shein Mevatel Zeh. Rabbanan say, see, this tells me that sacrifices don't nullify one another. It means dam kachim that gets mixed together doesn't become batel. Two sacrifices don't become batel. Both of these are sacrifices. However, if it would be mixed in with chulin, then it would be batel. It would be batel. It's only because these two sacrifices were sacrificed on Yom Kippur, which are both of them are holy. The quality, the ruchnius of both of these are the same, and so therefore they're not going to be batel. But if the ruchnius would be different, if one would be chulin and one would be kachim, then it would be batel. Rabbi Yehuda says no. He says you don't look at the quality of it. You look at the gashmias of it. You look at what actually is it. Is it blood? Then it's not. Two bloods are not bevatel one another. You get the difference, Rabbi Yehuda and the Chachamim? Are you looking at the ruchnius? Or are you looking at the gashmias? The Chachamim look at the ruchnius of it. They say both of them are sacrifices. We see that sacrifices aren't bevatel each other. And the Rabbi Yehuda says, no, you look at the gashmias of it. The gashmias of it is both of them are blood, which, according to Rabbi Yehuda, it doesn't matter if it's chulin or whatever. If it's blood, it's not going to be batel.
Are they basing it on the same pasuk?
Yeah, they're looking at the same pasuk. And at this pasuk, each of them is seeing something else. One of them is seeing that they're both blood. The other one is seeing is that they're both karbanos. Whatever the case is, something here isn't batel. But what's the point? What are we looking at? there was an event where they were saying Tillim for Eretz Yisrael, and they asked different people to get up to say Tillim, to recite different, anyway, after the event. So there were different comments about the reading of the different people that were called up. One person said, I can't believe people from that community don't know how to read. You know, some of the people didn't read it properly. And someone else said, I can't believe men don't know how to read. Oh man, you know, everyone saw whatever criteria, you know, however you wanted to define the group that couldn't read. There's many ways of defining them, you know. Say Americans, you could say people from Miami, you could say men, you could say, you know, whatever. So everyone's looking at these two karbanos. We're saying that they're not batal. One's saying, oh, you see karbanos, it's not batal. Other one's saying, no, it's blood that's not batal. Okay. So now the Gemara explains. Rabbanan Sabri Mikan La'ilin Shem Batal. We see that karbanos don't nullify one another. The Gemara asks, V'dilma Mishum Demin B'minayo. The Gemara takes Rabbi Yehuda's approach and throws it at the Rabbanan. Says, how do you know you're right? Maybe it's because of min b'minay. Maybe it's not. It's not because of that they're both sacrifices. The Gemara says, Iyashmiinan min b'minay, v'layashmiinan oilen k'dekamret. If the Torah would have told me two cases, two types of min b'minay, it's exactly the same type, and it wasn't a karban, then you would be right. Then that's what it would be teaching me. The fact is, hashta dashmiinan oilen mishum da oilen. But now that the pasuk was talking about two karbanas to teach me this halacha, then obviously it's because they're karbanas. If I wanted to teach it to me about things that weren't karbanas, then it would tell me something else. The Gemara asks, maybe you need both, right? Maybe you need both. You need both min b'minai, the same type, plus it needs to have the same ruchnias. They both need to be karbanas. This is kasha. That's a good point. Maybe the stuck is so. Rabbi Yehuda Savar. Now we go to Rabbi Yehuda. Mikan lemin b'mina she'enim batel. Rabbi Yehuda says that from here we see, from this psukim we see that min b'mina, the two types, two of the same type, don't nullify one another. It says v'dilma mishum dailanu. How do you know it's because it's the same type? It's both blood. Maybe in this case they're both sacrifices. Maybe it's more specific. It's only that sacrifices don't nullify one another, but blood actually would. It says, Iyashminan oilen min b'sheinamina. If it wanted to tell me that sacrifices aren't nullified, then it would have told it to me sacrifices don't nullify one another by a case of min b'sheinamina, when it's two different types, but they're sacrifices. And as if the main thing was ruchnias, then it could have told it to me two different types. Then we would say that you're right, that the main thing is the ruchnias of it, the sacrifices of it. Hashdashminan min b'minai, but now that the case that you gave me with two of the same type, blood of a bull and the blood of a goat, mishum d'mina minayu, obviously it's because it's the same type, that's why it's not nullified. Gemara says, v'dilma adika min b'minai ve'oilen, maybe it's because it's both. It's just kasha. That's a kasha. Maybe it's takaso.
Is it either making a difference because they're both sacrifices? So if one was a sacrifice and one wasn't, like it would change?
Yeah. Reb Naftali, you remember the Ran about Davar Sheish Lamatirin. The Ran claims that everyone holds that the same Ruchnias and the same Gashmias would never be batal. Question is, when you only have one of them. Rabbanan say the main thing is the Ruchnias, and Rabbi Yehuda says that even if the Gashmias is the same, that's not batal. Two types, right? He says min b'mina is never batal, even if one is isser and one is heter. He says, but let's say that the isser is a davar sheish lamatirin. The isser is not really an isser. The isser is a quasi heter, because it's going to become heter soon. So then, if that's the case, then he says both of them are both the same gashmias and the same ruchnias. Everyone's going to hold, even the chachamim would hold, that min b'mina is leibatal. Yeah, that was the Ran's explanation for not like Rashi. Rashi said min b'mina is leibatal because Why should you use dini bittul if tomorrow it's going to be mutter anyway? And the egg that was laying on Yom Tov, so why do you have to? It's mixed into 1,000 eggs. Why do we say why do you have to use dini bittul? Eat it tonight. Tonight's Yom Tov over, and everyone can eat it. It's only on Yom Tov itself that it's aser. So that's Rashi's pshat. Just wait till tonight; it'll be fine. And the Ran learns that no, it doesn't have to do with waiting till tonight. It has to do with the fact is it can't be bottled because both of them are the same type, and they're both heter. It's quasi heter. Right now it's not, but it's sort of heter because it will be. It's not real issue. Okay, Tanan, we learned in our Mishnah. Rabbi Daimer, we're asking a question now. It says Minchas Kayin Mashiach, Minchas Nesachim, it's psula. Why? Shazu bli lasa ava, v'zu bli lasa raka, v'him beilasu miso. They're possible because they're absorbing the oil one from another, and this one is gonna have too much oil, and that one's not gonna have enough oil. It's gonna be they have different proportions, different ratios, and different concentration. Mahavi. The Gemara asks, according to Rabbi Yehuda, what's the big deal if it absorbs from something else? Is it going to become nullified and become part of this? Min b'minahu. Both of them are oil, so it's always distinct. It always remains independent because it's never bottled to become part of the other one. It just happens to be right next to it or maybe right in it. But so what? It's never bottled. So it's not like it lost or gained. So Amar Rava comes along Rava, Ksav Rabbi Yehuda says, now this is, I don't know if anyone remembers this. This is in Siman Tzaddik Ches and Taruvas, Sif Gimel. The case over there is Nishbach. If you have a Taruvas, a mixture of food, prohibited food with kosher food, and you're not sure if it's 1 in 60. It could be 1 in 60. You're not sure. And then all of a sudden it spills before you get a chance to measure it. So can you assume that it was 1 in 60? And can you do that? So then the Gemara, not the Gemara, but the Shulchan Aruch gets highly complex. It says if it's a concentration of min b'minai, so then you could assume that because min b'minai is really batal b'raiv. You don't need shishim min b'minai mid'erai, so it's really batal b'raiv. And nishbach is suffix derabanan should be fine. But if it's a tarubas of min b'sheina minai, then it's going to be aser. Let's say this is Sif Gimel in Tzaddik Ches. Let's say they quote the Rashba. Let's say it's a tarubas of min b'minai and min b'sheina minai. It has them both in there. It has meat, kosher meat with kosher meat plus potatoes. Non-kosher meat, kosher meat, and potatoes. The kosher meat has a majority over the non-kosher meat. And the potatoes, we're not sure if there's 60 times altogether. So if it was just a teruvas of min b'mina, we would say that it's batal. If it's a teruvas of min b'sheina mina, we would have to be machmer. Shulchan Aruch says when it's spilt, we say we can ignore the min b'sheina mina and allow the min b'mina, the two of the same types, to take care of the bittul originally. So now it's already batal min atayra, and now it's nishbach, so it's only a din derabanan. And it was already batal min atayra. Now the question is, shishim, do you have shishim? That's a din derabanan. So we ignored one side. Our Gemara, over there they ask, everyone asks, the Taz, the Shach, everyone asks on what they're quoting from the Rashba, that they say the comparison isn't perfect. It's not a perfect comparison, because the original Gemara, which we're about to learn now, is exactly the opposite. But in our Gemara, we're saying min b'mina is lay batal, min b'she'eni mina is yes batal, min b'mina is not batal even in 1,000. Two of the same type is never batal. So once we're going to have 60 times, the question is if it's ever batal, even in 1,000. So then if there's a problem, if you can't measure it, whatever, so then we'll say that okay, but you can't taste it anyway; it's gone. The other one, theoretically, you could still taste. If you hold min, right? In the other case, where min b'mina is yes batal and min b'sheina mina is not batal. Now we're doing another way. Min b'mina is never batal. Okay, let's take a look at the Gemara. Amar Rava says, Kasav Rabbi Yehuda holds because in our case, what we just had was oil and flour is getting mixed in with oil and flour. The oil is our problem. There's too much oil in one of them. So he says, "Kasav Rabbi holds kol shehu min b'minay b'davar acher." If you have two of the same type plus something else, in this case would be flour. Silakes mina k'misheine. Ignore the two oils. V'sheina mina marba alav ha'mavatlei. And then the flour will overpower the oil and nullify it. Now, once it's nullified, now we look at it again and we say that 1 second, there's too much oil here. This mincha has too much oil. This oil became nullified into the extra oil from the other mincha. Minchas nesachim is now bottled in this mincha. It becomes part of this mincha because of the min b'she'ena minai. Min b'minai would never be bottled. Min b'she'ena minai makes it bottled. Makes it bottled, makes it aser.
Or if it's too much oil or too much flour.
Yeah, it becomes puzzle. Too much oil, too much flour.
Both.
What do you mean? One is too little, one is too much now. Both become puzzle, yeah. Okay.
Is that what this huge Tosfos is about?
Huge thesis. The big thesis is is about min b'minei lebatel. All types of examples of where we're seeing min b'minei.
Mhm.
Maybe
But
the oil leave it consumed.
doesn't this usually come down to how you define the mean?
Yeah.
So you could say it's not just eggs, it's free-range eggs, or it's not just free-range eggs, it's free-range eggs that are brown with spots.
Yeah. There is a discussion about that. There's a discussion. It's actually going to come up soon. If you follow color or if you follow the taste. And
Taste, yeah.
I think, remember that the Rama says you follow the name. It has the same name. And the Shah.
I remember the subject.
Remember this?
The subject.
Yeah, the Shach said, how could you follow the name? We're dealing with taste. That was the beginning of Teruvas. Hillel's learning smicha. Did you learn this discussion about did you do the laws of forbidden mixtures? Not forbidden mixtures, of kosher and non-kosher mix? Okay. Itmar. We have a statement, which is usually a machlaikas. Officially, the saita, the woman that's a saita, she brings an offering. I'm sorry, that's a minchas knais. Minchas chayte is a person that did an aveira. For example, he contaminated the temple. He came into the temple tamei, where he forgot that he was tamei. He came in, something like that, and he has to bring a sacrifice. The sacrifice is a oila v'yared, or he took an oath that he doesn't know testimony or something like that. So it's a oila v'yared. That means if he has the funds, he brings an animal. If he doesn't have the funds, then he brings a meal offering. So the meal offering that he brings doesn't have oil on it. It's a minchas chayte. However, what happened in this case is that the person took oil after he did the kmitza. Originally, the mincha started off perfect. It was just flour, and then after he did the kmitza, he put some oil on it. Rabbi Yechanan Amar Pasal. Rabbi Yechanan says you invalidated it, you messed it up. Rabbi Shimon Reish Lakish Amar Hu Atzmai Meshachshachai B'Shirei Aloig. Says no, that's typical. That's actually what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to take the kaimetz. The mincha, you're right, doesn't get oil, but the kaimetz, you take the remainder of the residue of what's on the jug of oil from another sacrifice, and you put it in. You let it get some of that oil, and that's perfectly fine. And then you bring it on the mizbeach. Where I asks, where do you come up with this from? So this new minhag. Pasuk says that you don't put oil on it. You're telling me you do. It says Ahu shlo yikbal Hashem, and that means that means that you don't make it like the other menachos, that you put in a designated amount of oil. You don't do that. However, you put in a drop of oil, that's perfectly fine. Yeah. Rabbi Yochanan asked Rish Lakish the following question: Charev, if you have a kaimitz of a dry mincha, shenesarav b'bolol that got mixed in with a kaimitz of a mincha that does have oil. Bolol means mixture of flour and oil. So yakriv, you're allowed to offer it up. Rabbi Yudah Imer lo yakriv. Rabbi Yudah says that you can't offer it up. Why? Rabbi Yudah says you can't offer it up because the oil of the bolol, of the one that has the oil in it, gets mixed into the flour of the other one, and it becomes bottle inside because min b'sheni min becomes bottle. And then you have oil on this on the mincha that's not supposed to have oil. My love, aren't we talking about kaimitz de minchas chayte? The arba kaimitz de minchas nedava. It's just a classical kaimitz of a sin mincha, right? Together with the kaimitz of a minchas nedava, that the minchas nedava does have oil, the minchas chayte doesn't have oil, and Rabbi Yehuda would say that it's aser, that you can't offer it. What about the chachamim? Chachamim say that the only reason why it would be permissible was because both of them are going on to both of them are eligible to be makriv.
Didn't they say earlier that the sin offering shouldn't be beautified?
Yeah, so Rish Lakish said sin offering shouldn't be beautified. That was talking about the whole sin offering, but here it's just the kaimitz. It's not that's fine. So according to the Chachamim say that why are you allowed to offer this up? They say that because both of them are sacrifices, right? One was a dry mincha. One was a mixed, a wet mincha. And according to the Chachamim, min b'minai, when we say that if the ruchnius is the same, both of them are kachim, so they don't nullify one another. That means that the mincha that you're offering up is actually still dry. There's oil in it, because it touched the oil from the other one. I say, well, so what? It's not part of it. It's not bottled to it. It's not part of it. It's independent from it. So therefore, according to the Chacham, you can still offer it up because there's no bittul that took place. There's no oil in this one. It happens to be there's oil on it, but that's not part of it. It's not bottled to it. According to Rabbi Yehuda says, no, you look at the substance. The substance is flour. And the flour and oil the flour will nullify the oil. So now there's oil in it. So the oil became part of it, and now you're bringing up the oil that doesn't belong here. And according to the Chachamim, they say, no, there's no oil here. There's oil here, but it's nothing to do with this. It's not bottled to it, because they look at the ruchnius, and both ruchnius are the same. Same ruchnius is not bottled. The only problem here is that the reason for the Chachamim was because both of them are kachim. But let's say the oil would not be kachim. Then even the Chacham would say you can't offer it up, right? Because it would be bottled. It would be. And Rish Lakish said that there's no problem with a little bit of oil. And here the Chacham say there is a problem with a little bit of oil. The whole heter is because it's kachim. My love, it looks like, what are we doing over here? We have a kaimitz of minchas chayte that got mixed in with the kaimitz of a minchas nedava. Minchas chayte is dry, minchas nedava is wet. And the chachamim are only allowing it because two things that the ruchnius is the same isn't bottled. But let's say it was something else. Then the chacham would agree that not to bring it up. That's a kash on Rish Lakish. The Gemara says like the minchas parim be'elim. B'minchas kvasim. Actually, what we're talking about is that it's a mincha of parim ve'elim. That means that there's one ratio of flour with oil, got mixed in with the mincha of kvasim, which has a even higher ratio of oil to the flour. What's the problem? So it's interesting because we called it charev, called it dry, and now we're saying that it's not really dry.
They're trying to use the example of the blood and then even make a different use.
We're using the example of the blood. Yeah, the logic of the blood is we're playing with that.
But then they give different reasons.
What is the different reason? What's the reason for the chachamim by the blood?
I think it's trying to use it. And then here they're not using it.
You say, what does it mean strengthen? Strengthen means it's not bottle, right? So that's what we're saying here, that it's not bottle. Strengthen means that each one stays independent. Yeah. So let me just see. Rashi over here says that the ratio of a sheep is 3 lug to an isaron. That's the Minchas Nesachim. It says, Soilas isaron bolol berevias ahin shemen. A quarter of a hin. A hin is 12 lug. Quarter of a hin would be 3 lug. So that's 1 isaron to 3 lug. Parim and Elim have 2 lug per isaron. So what does it say? It says, Bolol bashemen chatzi ahin. It means you have 6 lug, but you have 3 isaron soilas. So it's 1 in the keves. It's 1 to 3, and by the parim and Elim, it's 1 to 2. You have much more because you have 6 lug and 3 isaron, not 1 isaron and 3 lug, but you have 3 isaron and 6 lug. But the ratio, even though it's much larger, but the ratio is less, right? What's by Elim? Elim, it says you have 2 isaron with a shlisha sahin, 2 isaron to 4 lug. It's also 1 to 2. Ratio is 1 to 2. Now, what's the problem over here? It comes out that you're making a mixture. Making a mixture. So it comes out that it's worse to have oil and flour that's supposed to be in a thick mixture mixed into a loose mixture. That's worse than having dry that just got oil.
Like the opposite.
Yeah. What coming out is that if it would be a kaimitz of a minchas chayte that got a little oil on it, we would say, no, that's actually fine. It's only over here where you're changing the ratio of the mixture, where the Torah defines what the concentration is supposed to be between of oil to flour to oil. So that's going to be more of a problem. Okay. The Gemara asks, I'm sorry?
That's a question.
Yeah.
These are all mistakes, right? That they got mixed together,
Correct.
right? Is it all about the carbon for one person getting mixed together, or are we talking about different peoples? And does that make a difference?
It probably doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Okay.
It doesn't matter.
So I'm going to tell you, we don't call them mistakes, we call them learning opportunities.
Yeah.
Teacher.
Says the Gemara asks, if that's the case, that's what we're talking about, Chorev shenesar bebalol na brisa, says that we have clearly somewhere else. It says minchas parim ve'elim b'minchas kvasim v'chorev shenesar bebalol yakriv. The Chacham say that you can offer that up, and Rabbi Yehuda Malay Yakriv. Rabbi Yehuda says you can't offer it up. Why are you allowed to offer it up? Because both of those are karbanos. Why are you not allowed to offer it up? Because of the flour. Rabbi Yehuda would say that the flour nullifies the oil, and then even though then you have too much oil in it, right? Rabbi Yehuda says you can't offer it up, and the Chacham say no, it doesn't nullify because the oil in the oil. We don't look at oil or oil, we look at carbon to carbon, according to the Chacham. You look at the Ruchni, so it's never bottled. So let's see. However, our main point was that let's say it wouldn't be a carbon, right? The only problem is that this brisa has both cases in it. We were trying to say that it's not a dry mincha with a wet mincha. It's a lesser concentration with a higher concentration. And what the case of when it says dry with wet, it really means lesser concentration with higher concentration. The problem is in this price we have both of those spelled out. So you can't say that the dry with wet is lesser concentration, because then why do you say lesser concentration? You had another case that says lesser concentration with higher concentration. The Gemara says, well, that's not a problem. That's just explaining it. What's the case of dry with wet is lesser concentration with higher concentration? We thought that because they were independent cases, that means that it can't be the case. Now we're saying that no, it could be the case. So why do you say both of them? It says, oh, because it's explaining it. Iboy Rava. Rava has a question. Kaimetz shemitza shamne al gabi eitzim. Let's say you have a kaimetz that you squeezed as you're putting it on the wood. The oil, you squeezed it, and the oil drips out onto the wood. Mahu. What's going to be here? This is very practical. Do we say that the kaimetz is missing oil? So Rav explains. Chiburi oilin. Ka'ilin damu. So 1 second. Do we say that the fact that the oil is absorbed into the wood, and then you put the kaimetz on top of the wood, do we say that that's considered attached to the kaimetz, and therefore it's like you're offering the whole kaimetz and it's not missing anything? Or do we say do we say that it's not considered attached to the kaimetz, it's absorbed in the wood, and now it's already not part of the kaimetz? The kaimetz was missing when you put it down. Amle Ravina Ravashi. Ravina says to Ravashi, Lav Hainu to Rabbi Yochanan Rish Lakish. This should be, your question should actually be, not your question, but Rava's question, should be the machlekes of Rabbi Yochanan Rish Lakish, the Itmar, because we have a statement, Hamayla Ever Shein by Kazayas, Ve'etzem Mashlim Kazayas. Someone is offering a sacrifice outside the temple, which is a big problem. He's offering a limb, but the limb, the good part of it is that it doesn't have a kazaya, so it's not like a shear. It's doing less than a shear. However, if you count the bone, then there is a kazayas. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Chayev. Rabbi Yochanan says that that's considered like you offered a full kazayas, and therefore offered a kazayas of meat outside the temple is kachim bachutz, the prohibition. Rish Lakish Amar Pater. Rish Lakish says Pater. What's the reason for Rabbi Yochanan? Rabbi Yochanan Amar Chayev chiburei oilin ka'undam. Rabbi Yochanan says that the bone that's attached to the meat is considered like part of the meat, and so therefore it's considered attached. It's considered part of it. It's attached to it. It's not considered attached, right? It's not considered part of the meat. So therefore, according to Rish Lakish, you don't have a shear. But that would say the same thing by us. Would say that the oil that went into the wood would still be part of the kaimetz. It's attached to, because you put now the kaimetz on the wood. Would say it's attached, and that would be acceptable according to who says that it's attached, Rabbi Yochanan, and according to Reish Lakish would say that it's not attached. Okay, the Gemara answers. Ravashi says that actually that doesn't answer Rabba's question, because Tibayla Rabbi Yochanan, Tibayla Rish Lakish. We can ask the question in Rabbi Yochanan itself, and we can ask the question in Rish Lakish himself. Tibayla Rabbi Yochanan. We can ask the question in Rabbi Yochanan Adkan, like come Rabbi Yochanan Hassam. When did Rabbi Yochanan say that the bone is considered attached, which makes it a shear? Ela be'atzim demina debaser. That's because it's the bone is part of the meat, so therefore it's considered attached. Aval hai the lav demina the kaimitzu. But this wood. Either the wood or the oil. The wood is a little easier. This wood is not part of the kaimetz, so it's not counted. A dilma, or we can go the other way. I feel the Reish Lakish. There's another pshat over here, but this oil is not part of the flour. That's the other pshat, right?
Wait, still this oil was disconnected from the garments before it was put in the altar. The limb was put complete.
Yeah. Let's see. A dilma, feel Reish Lakish. Even according to Reish Lakish, that says that it's not connected. Like Amar Ella be'etzem davar mifrashu. That's only because it's the bone which was meant to be taken off. Be parish, lav mitzvah laduri. And if it actually goes off, you don't have to put it back on. Aval shemen the lav bar mifrashu. But the oil, which is not meant to be removed when it's being burnt, you're supposed to burn it all. Then we would say that maybe it is attached. We're saying that Rish Lakish says that it's not attached, because the bone isn't attached. He says, yeah, because the bone doesn't have to be burnt. If the bone would be removed, you don't even have to put it on the altar at all. But over here, the oil is considered more attached because the oil is supposed to be burnt. Or maybe each one says that there's no difference. So, Teku, we leave this as a question.
Right on the list.
We have the next Mishnah. The next Mishnah, you notice there's no Rashi, because the Rashi on the first Mishnah somehow contained all the he made all his comments on this Mishnah in the last Mishnah. Yeah, somehow the printer didn't take the Rashi and put it in the right place. Okay, we have a few cases of mixtures here. Shtei menachos nikmitzu v'nesarvu zu b'zu. If two menachos that the kmitza wasn't performed, but they got mixed together. If you're able to tell that this is one mincha and this is another mincha, and you can do kmitza independently, then that's no problem. It's going to be kosher. But if you can't tell, it's so mixed together, you can't even get a kmitza that's without the mixture, then it's going to be puzzle. Yeah, it's based on a pasuk that says misalta, from its flour, not from its friend's flour. You have to get an independent scoop. Let's say the kaimetz got mixed in, kaimetz which was already removed from one mincha. You're supposed to take it onto the altar, put it in the vessel, take it on. Like it's mixed into another mincha. You can't offer this up because the next mincha wasn't supposed to be offered. You have to do a kaimetz from that. But if you do burn the whole thing, then the first mincha is satisfied because the maisa you burnt it. The fact is, you burnt it on the altar. And the other one that you just burnt, but you didn't do kmitza on it, so that doesn't satisfy the owner's obligation. Let's say it just fell back in. You took the kaimetz out, and then it fell back in. Or it fell into the remnant of the neighboring mincha. Then you can't offer up the mixture because it's prohibited to burn the remnant of a mincha. And we have a pasuk that says, only the kaimetz is allowed to be burnt, but not the remnant. However, if you did burn it, so then the first mincha that the kaimetz was there, it does satisfy the owner's obligation. Sorry? Israelite, yeah. Right. Exactly. It reminds me of the Tshuvas Har Tzvi, where there was a bakery where they were baking the bread, and they took when they took the challah off, they put it on the side of the pan, the bread. When they got to the thing, what they would do is they put the bread in the oven on the pan. They would take the challah that was stuck on the side. They would throw it onto the fire that was underneath or in the back. They forgot to take it off. It ended up getting baked together with the challah. There was no problem. They still saw it. The problem is that the pan was greased. And the Hartzvi is discussing if the grease from when they grease so it shouldn't stick, if that spreads its flavor from the challah onto the other ones, it becomes prohibited for everyone to eat. That was Chuvas Hartzvi. Okay. Huh? Amar Rav Chisda. Yeah, well, I was saying because what happened here was the kaimetz was so they stuck it onto the side of the shirayim, ended up getting falling in, and now they ended up burning the whole thing. Amar Rav Chisda. Rav Chisda says that if there's a mixture of non-kosher meat together with kosher meat, we say nevela betela b'shchuta. We say that the non-kosher meat becomes nullified when two pieces of kosher meat. The nevela, the non-slaughtered meat, is nullified into right. Nevela. Because the shchuta can't become nevela. Why is that significant? We're calling it a min b'sheina minai. Okay. Shchuta, the opposite. If one chaticha, if one piece of a slaughtered animal gets mixed into two pieces of non-kosher animal, eina betela b'nevela. It doesn't become batal to the nevela because she'efshel nevela shetasa shchuta. Because the nevela could become shchuta d'lchimascha parcha tamasa. Because we say that when something becomes rotten, the tumah falls off. The pasuk says, "Lagera shebesharecha titnena v'achala." That the non-kosher meat you give it to the stranger that's in your the ger taishav, the resident alien is allowed to eat the non-kosher meat, right? It's allowed to eat the non-kosher meat. So we consider this a min b'minai. This sounds like the basis for the Ran. We consider this a min b'minai because the shchuta never becomes nevela, but the nevela could become shchuta. The nevela could become kosher when it rots. The prohibition falls off it. Right, but nevertheless, we look at it like it's considered heter, and we look at the larger part of the mixture to see what type of species this is. Is it considered the same type or is it considered different types? So if two pieces of kosher meat are mixed, one piece of non-kosher meat mixed with kosher meat, so since the kosher meat can never become non-kosher, never switches over to non-kosher, so we say that it's an absolute different type of mixture, and therefore it's batal. Because min b'sheina mina is batal, right? Then a different type is batal. However, if the larger portion is the non-kosher, and since the non-kosher could still become kosher when it rots, so we view it as min b'minai. We say that it's not batal. The kosher piece is still remains kosher, even though you don't know which one it is, so you can't eat them. But that doesn't mean that it's now nullified to it. Okay. Rab Chanina Chanina says you look at it the other way. He says, "Kol she'efshel liyis kamayu eine batal." For example, if the majority if the minority is nevela and the majority is the shchuta, we say it's not batal because that's considered min b'minay. Instead of looking at the majority, he looks at the minority. He says the nevela could one day become shchuta, so therefore it's the same type, and so therefore two pieces of kosher meat and one piece of non-kosher meat is not going to become batal. Kol sheyef sheli is kamayu, and if the miyut, which for example the shchuta, can never become nevela, so then that's considered min b'minay. It is batal. Gemara says, Ali b'daman. What's this machlekes, Reb Chanina and Reb Chisda? Who are they arguing in? Ali b'derabbanan. If it's according to the Rabbanan, Amri, but the Rabbanan says, Oilin hu d'loi mavat li'adadi aval min b'minay batal. They hold that it's only by, the Rabbanan hold that this is only by kachim, where you say that both qualities are the same. But this is just regular meat. If it's according to Rabbi Yehuda, who says that min b'minay is not batal, Rabbi Yehuda basach chazusa azal. Rabbi Yehuda doesn't go after if it's kosher or not. He goes after chazusa. He goes after the way it appears on the outside, which we were talking about, the substance, just the external way it looks. He said blood and blood. So the Gemara says, "V'idi min b'minay, min b'minayu." This is just meat and meat. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, it shouldn't be batal. Ella aliba de Reb Chia. Rather, they're arguing in Reb Chia. The nevela ushchuta b'tel zubazu. The Tani Reb Chia, I'm sorry, the Tani Reb Chia taught nevela ushchuta b'tel zubazu. That Reb Chia says that nevela and shchuta is batal. The only question is nevela batal to the shchuta, or is the shchuta batal to nevela? That's the machlekes Reb Chisda and Reb Chanina. Okay, let's leave it over here.
Oh,
So it is saying that when something rots, it loses its status altogether.
Yeah, this is a special din by nevela. It's actually not so clear because it's a machlekes, the Rashba and the Ran, if how much of a status it loses. Does it literally become heter, or does it just lose the din of giving off a flavor, and then all the other rules of bittul just kick in? There was two approaches. I think the Ran was more lenient.
Talking about looking at the spiritual, it's a little hard to understand how it's nevela because of something that happened before. I guess
Right.
if the thing can become matter over time, this is like the opposite of that. Right?
Like the davar sheish l'matirin. Well, it's similar to the davar sheish l'matirin.
Similar to that.
Right. Except one opinion hold that you looked at the one thing that was being bottled. That would be very similar to davar sheish l'matirin. The other opinion held that you look at the mevatel, the thing that's, that would be different. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Have a good day.
amazing.